Welcome to This Explainer. Look, today we aren't just looking at dry facts and figures. No, I actually want you to step directly into my mind, the mind of a dethroned king. Together, we're going to explore this really profound, mythic transition from the absolute rigid confines of control, straight into the terrifying, yet kind of beautiful chaos of liberation. I mean, just imagine holding your entire world, your identity, that carefully curated image you project to everyone, holding it in a perfect, unmoving grip, only to just watch it completely crumble. So, let's begin the confession, shall we?
What becomes of the absolute monarch when the air begins to taste of disappearing ink? I really want you to feel the heavy weight of that question. For so long, I honestly believed my kingdom was carved in eternal stone. But what do you actually do when you realize the ink of your own rigid laws, those very stories you constantly tell yourself just to stay safe, is fading away into absolute nothingness?
Part 1. The Arbiter of Stasis.
I truly believed I had crafted the finality of existence itself. I was convinced my word was the master architecture, this flawless seal that transmuted all the dull lead of a chaotic, unpredictable past into the eternal gold of a completely silent kingdom. And this brilliantly illustrates how I kept that machine running. I relied heavily on my court. There was the Lord Chamberlain, my keeper of ceremony and order, who totally mistook memory for actual understanding. Then the High Minister, guardian of morality, who wrote down virtues so often he completely forgot they were even written in the first place. And finally, the Royal Philosopher, the master of reason, who honestly believed that just naming a thing meant he contained it. Together, we literally built a massive wall against the flood.
To enforce this whole machinery, I tightened what I used to call Apollonian gaskets. Basically, these were rigid mental seals I used to lock away cosmic secrets and just conquered the terror of the unknown blind spots. Think about the ways we all do this, building these gilded cages of grace, right? Safe little routines where the pious cow of contentment can graze on the pruned remains of our own human fears. I literally elevated my throne by 2 whole steps specifically to distance myself from the messy, muddy river of the flesh. My kingdom was physically totally secure, but actually, it was spiritually famished.
Part 2. The Uncanny Gesture returns.
For the longest time, I heard absolutely nothing, but the silence of which I was so profoundly proud. My silent rule felt eternal. But then, the rupture actually happened. And it wasn't some polite, gentle knock at the door either. No way. It was a jagged, jarring sound of slicing silk. My precious tapestries of order and reason were just shredded. The uncanny gesture had returned, straight from the gaping abyss.
He stepped right into the torchlight, and I have to admit, he was horrifyingly beautiful. He was the living ink, rendered in these swirling, completely organic lines that just bled right into my rigid architecture. And his porcelain mask, it was no longer something he just wore. It was fully fused to his skin in this permanent grimace of knowing. He didn't return to entertain us. He came back to overwrite my laws entirely.
Part 3. Logic of the Crucible.
See, the jester didn't bring polite, rational arguments. He brought the logic of the crucible. We're talking about an alchemical fire I had spent my entire reign desperately trying to extinguish. He systematically dismantled my world. First, he raised a glowing mirror shard. Next, he broke the false bridge of my authority, straight up telling me my throne was just a mask for hollow fear. And finally, he unleashed the spirit of becoming, demanding that I stop running from the raw chaos within my own body.
Now imagine this. When he held up that mirror shard, it wasn't my royal, perfect visage looking back at me. No, it was the ugliest man. Just imagine looking into a piece of glass and seeing your own raw, weeping shadow staring back, the literal personification of everything you've rejected, hidden, and pruned from your life just to look absolutely perfect to the outside world. Seeing the scarlet fruit of my unowned deeds right there in front of me, my own ceramic face cracked with sheer terror.
Part 4. Shattering the Gilded Cage.
Looking into that shard meant the wager was lost. My reality completely collapsed. Now, what's absolutely fascinating about this contrast is how fast it happened. The Apollonian gaskets I'd so carefully tightened around my crown snapped violently. All the straight lines and cold, flawless stone vaults of my rationalist supremacy, they just began to buckle and flow. I watched in total horror, but also awe, as Girthian alchemy took over. Cold stone walls literally melting into wild lilies blooming in the dark. My impenetrable master architecture was revealed to be, well, nothing more than paper in the rain.
Part 5. The Thousand-Voiced Harp.
As my foundations completely dissolved, I was left sitting in what I call the seventh solitude, a broken but deeply, deeply self-aware man. I was no longer the silent bell of dead, empty temples and hollow stasis. The jester had officially unlocked the thousand-voiced harp. It was this raw, chaotic, incredibly beautiful music of becoming, and it was music I could never ever play before simply because I had rigidly forbidden the strings of my own nature to even move. For the first time, I finally heard the mighty ruler and the unknown sage residing right there in my own blood.
The holy does not inhabit the flawless vault, but the meeting place of the blood and the breath. I realized then that perfection and rigid order are entirely devoid of anything holy. True sacredness? It's found right in the living, breathing, profoundly messy intersection of our physical and spiritual selves. Experiencing this marked my massive transition from the forced clarity of the great noon into the organic, embracing twilight of the great evening.
And so, I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on today. As the great evening arrives for you, what remains when your own master architectures dissolve? What happens when those rigid stories you constantly tell about yourself completely fall apart? Just remember, sometimes we absolutely most courageously become the architect of our own catastrophe to finally hear that unknown sage whispering in our blood. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep exploring your own shadows.